What you're about to see or listen to is a live version of the podcast that we recorded last night when our streaming platform, StreamYard, went down mid-recording. So we got about 45 minutes in, then the chat suddenly died and we carried on and didn't really think anything of it. We did about an hour and 5 minutes and then realised once we finished, oh no, that's not going to have saved and we've lost some footage. However, the first 45 minutes is completely as it was, so forget we ever did any more than that. It will be a bit of an abrupt ending, but it's one of those things. So here's the 45 minutes of the live show that we recorded yesterday that is now going out today instead. Very confusing, but still enjoy it all the same. We've got a couple of bit of talking points to start off before the live chat kind of kicks into gear. I can see there's already a few comments starting to roll through as well, so we'll get cracking in a sec. John, how's things, mate? Good?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Dan. We are halfway through.
Did you enjoy your apple that you had before we started?
I did, yeah. I forgot the name of the apple. You know, obviously there's different apples. What's your favourite apple?
I'm a Pink Lady fan.
Yeah, same. That wasn't a Pink Lady, though. It was a smaller one. I didn't have enough time to eat a Pink Lady one. Do you like green apples? I do like them, but they're sometimes too sour.
Yeah, I used to like them as a kid, but I think my palate has changed a little bit as I've got a little bit older.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I wish I knew the name of this apple. It begins with a B. I'm pretty sure. If people
Brayburn.
It's something like that. They're quite small. They're not too dissimilar to a Pink Lady, I don't think, at least for me. So, yeah, enjoy my apple. And what I was going to say, it's halfway through June, so things are starting to ramp up a little bit as we'll get on to on the podcast. You know, Villa don't have to do a whole lot before the end of the month. They do need to trade, of course. They need to make money, but they don't need to do everything right now, and it would also be unwise for them to do everything right now. I don't know if we'll get on to that later on in terms of accounting periods, etc. So yeah, that's why I think it's a little bit slow at the moment, but things will kick into gear soon. And then obviously, just in general, looking forward to the new season. We've got the Europa League background there, and that's something that I'm looking forward to as well next season. So yeah, I don't know, like everything that happened the end of the last campaign, Old Trafford, etc. I am slowly getting over, and I am looking forward now to the new season. So yeah, I'm feeling good, mate.
Yeah, good. Okay, more Apple chat says View Sonic. I'm more than happy to chat. Literally, this episode will be one of those ones that obviously we're going to talk about Aston Villa. It'd be mental if we didn't. But set the agenda if you want us to talk about apples for 5 minutes. Again, more than happy to do that.
Not pears, though. I don't like pears.
No, I don't really like a pear either. What's your favourite fruit, full stop?
Oh, I think it probably is an apple. Grapes, apples, oranges. I was about to say lemons, which is stupid. You don't eat a lemon, but you know, I think you're
tuck it into a lemon like it's an apple, just biting through it. See, I think with things like an orange, I think there's too much admin for an orange. Like I've got to be like I couldn't eat an orange on the go, peeling it, messing around, juice everywhere.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. What about like berries? This is maybe controversial. I don't like strawberries, raspberries. I hate raspberries. Do you know why I don't like raspberries? When I was a kid, I used to have the sickness tablets when I was like 5 or 6. And I always thought you had to chew the sickness tablets, which was always false information. You can just swallow it. So for about 3 years of my life, I was chewing these sickness tablets, and it was probably one of the worst experiences of my early years because it tasted, revolting. It made me feel sick. So from that day until now, I can't bear the smell or taste of a raspberry, so I don't touch those. And I don't like strawberries for some reason either. So
strawberries are so hit and miss. Strawberries are so hit and miss in this country. I think if you have strawberries abroad, they tend to be better, but you can have them this time of this country, at different times of the year. They're just not very nice.
Really?
We'll talk about Villa at some point. Do you want to just move your mic a touch closer if you can? You're a little bit quiet compared to me, although I am kind of swallowing the microphone here. Right, let's talk about Villa a little bit. I've got in the title transfers, Tielemans, and podcast plans as just a couple of topics we will inevitably talk about based off going into this, but we will get to the live chat in a second. We've got Tielemans in there for Tielemans' international duty quotes, something that we've not touched on the podcast. I'm not going to read them all because there's quite a lot of it, but the crux of it was I feel good at Villa. I've got a lot of confidence in the coach, etc., etc. Does that make me think about a transfer? Nothing is ruled out, but I am not personally thinking about that. I am doing well at Villa. And these kind of things tend to snowball a little bit generally into a bit of nothing to me. It feels column inches, it feels podcast for a few minutes. It's something to talk about. It's something for fans to kind of jump onto when there's not really much going on. Luca Dean on the flip side had some quotes that he was kind of happy to stay, and the club are happy for him to stay, and that's kind of important to him. Does any of this actually mean anything? I don't really know. I'm not particularly bothered either way. I remember some quotes last year. I'm sure it was Tielemans.
It was Tielemans.
About like he wasn't playing very much.
Yeah.
I think the narrative that was then a bit like, you've not started very well. Actually, it would have been last season, the start of last season, wouldn't it? Not the season just gone. It would have been the August before that or the September before that or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a bit like, well, you haven't really played very well, so that's why you're not in the team. Like, it takes time, and how quickly the narrative changes. As a journalist and as a fan, do you read too much into international duty quotes or not?
I think you have to a degree. I think a lot of people, kind of quick to maybe push back on what Tielemans has said there is, it's a non-story. And to a degree, it kind of is. He literally doesn't know because it's the transfer window and anything can happen. But that in itself is a story, because we know that Villa, after missing out on the Champions League, need to make money in the next accounting period. And as we've said previously, any single player could leave if the right fee arrives. Yeah. And that's the same for almost any club in the world, especially Villa, who, unlike other teams who have found very creative ways to kind of get over these rules, shall I say, find loopholes and use them. So far, Villa haven't done that. So therefore, player sales right now is the only way that they can, really generate funds. And I'm talking about the next accounting period, unless they want to make more money than they need to in the next couple of weeks before June 30. But yeah, Tielemans' comments again, he said in there, I'm really happy at Villa, really happy working in the manager that I'm working with and everything else. So you kind of a very professional answer, but he didn't, shall I say, shut the door on leaving. But equally, that isn't something that he had to do. He didn't have to say that, did he? He could have just said, I'm really happy at Villa and I'm going to see out my contract, or whatever he's going to say. It doesn't, how do I put it? What he says in that interview doesn't mean a whole lot. However, again, he said what he said, and that was that he can't rule anything out. And that is something that we knew already, so it doesn't come as like a big shock. But equally, when a player says it, it's obviously going to cause some sort of backlash is the wrong word. It's going to stir something up, especially when it's been quite a quiet start to the window as well. I think, for example, if Martinez was to say anything on international duty tomorrow, it would be kind of everything that people are talking about, even if it's a very slight thing. So it's easy to read too much into what players are saying. However, Tielemans has literally said that he can't rule anything out, which suggests that yes, he could leave like any other player.
The comments are now available to flash up on screen, by the way, for those that are watching, so keep them clean. I'm going to scroll all the way back to the start and basically try and answer as many as I think we can, or that are interesting talking points. Please do not be offended if I skip past your question. There's a lot to get through. Firstly, Jasper, am I the only Villa fan fed up with the Martinez transfer saga? His wife speaks on local radio, but the media are still convinced he's moving. I would suggest his wife would have more of an idea. Again, a bit of a, I don't want to say difficult one, but that kind of vibe of like, what do we expect Martinez's wife to say? Yeah, he's leaving.
That
doesn't happen either, does it?
Yeah, his wife's opened a business in Birmingham. I think she might be located elsewhere as well in terms of her business, which is fantastic. And I think Emery was there for the opening of it. It's in around Sutton Coldfield, I think. Yeah. But yeah, no, she's not going to come on the radio and say, we hope to move to Madrid. We hope to go somewhere else. It's not going to happen. So of course she's going to answer in the most kind of diplomatic way. But equally, she won't know. Monchi doesn't know. Martinez doesn't know. He might have an inkling about what he's doing, and you suggested that's why he was crying at Villa Park, thinking that might be his last home game at Villa Park. And again, the key word there is might. And we know that Emery is a very emotional guy, which can work for and against. I think we saw it against at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. But as I say, in the summer window, anything can happen. And the fact that he will have interest is one thing, but of course he's a goalkeeper and there needs to be movement in this position. There needs to be domino. So this is why it wouldn't be a quick thing.
It was never position for that. Because again, I don't want to, actually, I'm not even going to do it. I was going to name specifics, but that will start. Oh, is he going there? If Villa want to sign a goalkeeper because they don't want Martinez anymore for whatever reason, Martinez has to go first, and it's because it's that one player per position thing. You can't kind of get things going. Somebody somewhere has got to bite the bullet, and start that effective, well, he's now gone there, so now we can go and sign that goalkeeper for us, and he's going to move to this club, whereas other positions on the pitch probably aren't like that.
Yeah, I think the only other one would maybe be striker.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
If you've got a top striker, why would you buy another one? If you've got a top keeper, why would you buy another one? So it takes movement in that certain position. We saw it when we signed Martinez ourselves. It was the case that Arsenal had two of them. We had who did we have? Pepe Reina, of course. So when he left, he was on loan, wasn't he? And Heaton was injured, so that there was room for movement there. So yeah, one that can or probably will drag on. Again, it's up in the air. But if you ask me now, what my prediction would be at the end of the window, if I had to bet on it, I probably would say that he was leaving. Again, not just because this is Martinez's decision, but also it's the club's. And God, I hate PSR so much, but we have to talk about it because it's relevant. He does solve both issues, wage and transfer fee. I wouldn't expect a huge transfer fee from Martinez. I would say that. But he is on a big contract, and he is, whether people think he's the best in the world or not, he is one of the best in the world.
There's a comment there on the bottom of the screen from Adam. It says, another Villa podcast said Emery is worth about 30 to 40, and Ben Jacobs said the same. Surely we could get more for the world's number one. So I think, I've spoken about this before, so apologies for those that listen to everything. So I think there will be some transfer fees that you think, we could have got more for it. Surely he's worth more than that, and it's much less than you think. I think it's a really interesting dynamic with that. Clubs will know that Villa might be in trouble, and trouble probably overstates it, but we'll need to sell at some point before June, and perhaps Martinez in another life is worth 60 million to Villa, but on the 29th of June to X club, maybe Villa think, we probably could do with that 35. It's a low ball, but we could probably do with it.
And is this like the next accounting period? Villa don't have the Champions League money, do they? So they're going to have to make up that amount. It would be really foolish of them to sell Martinez and Morgan Rogers in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you won't,
because then you need that money, don't you, for the next account?
So you're going to sell one of them. You think at least wait till the 1st of July so it's in for next year's.
Yeah, you got to be clever with it. And again, with Martinez, I'd be pretty shocked if all of a sudden. I mean, I say I would be shocked. It's the transfer window. Oblak could leave in the next week, and maybe they'll want Martinez straight away. I don't know, but these things can happen, so we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, it's interesting, Dan. This is a question for you, I guess. How many of Villa's current squad would fetch a transfer of above 50 million? How many do you think?
I think less than you think. Instinctively, I think you think.
Yeah, instinctively, you'd probably rattle off guys.
I'll just keep saying think. So the year that we finished fourth, you just go Kamara, Tielemans, Rogers, Watkins, Konsa, Martinez, Pau Torres, maybe. But I think that changes on the landscape of the transfer market, and maybe certain players either not being as good as we think, or another club not valuing them as highly as we do. So that to Villa, Ezri Konsa is probably a £50 million player or more. But to somebody to actually buy him, I do think he would be worth that. But in theory, a player like that may be undervalued in the wider market and be more like a 40 or 45 million. So I think you'd like to think Kamara, probably Tielemans, Rogers.
Tielemans, I think, is worth above 50 million. But Tielemans is there.
I think Watkins, Villa would value him at more than 50 to us, but would somebody sign him for more than 50? I don't think they would either.
No, I don't think they would.
Martinez, I think exactly the same as Watkins. We would want more than 50 for him, but I don't think we'll get that. Beyond that, I don't think there's many, unless I'm missing somebody obvious.
So if we got, for me, Konsa would be there. Konsa, Tielemans, Kamara, Rogers. That's 4. You've got Matson, Dean, Pau Torres. I don't think you get more than 50 for Pau Torres. Mings, Martinez. So I'm just rattling through the team. And then your forwards, Bailey, Ramsey. I don't think you get more than 50.
No.
Yeah, it's probably
Anana.
Anana, missed Anana. Anana would be there as well because he bought him for 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably looking at maybe 6. It's kind of a push, really.
I don't really know what I take from that. How many other clubs have lots more players worth 50 million?
No, it's more of the point. If Villa need to make money, you either sell a top player or you sell a couple of your. I mean, this is the problem, right? Villa, Watkins is a top player for Villa. Martinez is a top player for Villa, but we've just said that both of them probably wouldn't be in the 50 million zone. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Again, the market dictates. It's supply and demand, isn't it? And how many teams need a striker? Well, probably quite a few. But Arsenal appear to be going for Sesko. Chelsea have gone for Delap. United have gone for different players. So yeah, I'm happy to keep Watkins, but it just shows there's maybe not as many players we think that are sellable for big money in the next calendar period. Is the kind of point I'm trying to make. I will always caveat this by saying that I'm trying not to be negative. We know we have to sell players and we know we have to make money. It's what we've done in the last 3 years. Had a really low net spend, finished fourth, got to European semi-final, Champions League last 8, FA Cup semi-final within the space of what Unai Emery's 10 years, 2.5 years old, something like that.
Yeah, roughly, yeah. It's
not bad considering the net spend that we've had. So that's why I'm not like, oh my God, we have to sell these. Yeah, crack on. And again, a lot of, sorry, I'm kind of going on. I don't know if there's going to be any questions about the women's.
This is question number 1, by the way.
There might be, I'll shut up soon. The women's team, and a lot of people saying, why are we selling the women's team? This isn't information, but again, why would you do it now if you could do it in the next calendar period?
Well, yeah. So
and
let's
also,
say
the loophole, I think, is now kind of back open. Whether people think it's like, I don't want to say ethically right. I don't know if that's the right kind of word.
Morally.
Loopholes. Use them when you need them, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Let's clarify that, because we did the PSR finance video with Dave Powell. It was really popular and did well for us, and people enjoyed it. Again, if you've got more questions about the finance side of it, trust me, go back and find that episode. It's on the feed somewhere on Spotify, YouTube, etc. It's well worth 45 minutes, or however long it was. He said in that the loophole to sell the women's team or property or whatever was closed. And on the same day after that video came out, it was actually like, oh no, it isn't closed. It's actually still open, and the club's voted against it. That's good news for Villa. Whether you like the idea of it or not, do I want Villa to be better than selling themselves their own women's team? Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But if the rules force us into doing stupid things like this, then you absolutely take it. Now, again, to take away any kind of like knowledge of actual figures, because by and large only Villa will know. Let's say we need to make 20 million now, and selling the women's team to yourself is 100. It won't be, but just say for argument's sake, you don't do that now and kind of overinflate this year. You make that 20 million up somewhere else, and then you do that 100 for next year's accounts when you're not getting the Champions League money.
It would make that would make sense. And again, as you say there, Dan, that's not information. We don't know that the club are planning to do that, but it could be a possible strategy to help boost yourselves and your accounts. But again, there's been lots of loopholes being utilised in the last year or two. There's probably going to be more. PSR will change and it'll adapt to the SCR, and it'll probably go in line with UEFA and the wages. Like, it's all kind of high in the sky, and like, I don't want to talk about it that much anymore because it's boring. So we'll probably stop now. But yeah, I think we've covered it relatively well though.
Yeah, go and watch the finance video if you want more of that.
Yeah.
More interesting for us. Julie, what are you having for tea? I need some inspiration. Is it tea for you in your household, John, or is it dinner?
Everything's dinner apart from breakfast.
Right, okay, that's weird. So you do breakfast, dinner? I saw your lunch.
To be honest, mate, I just have food. I don't know. I don't really. Maybe it's because I don't have a family. I do have a family, but I don't have my own. I don't have a kid, so I think that would be like more structured. If I'm
right, you just eat when you're hungry, basically.
Yeah, which is quite often. So I just cook at some points in the day.
Fine. Have you had your tea yet, or your lunch, or whatever you want to call it, or is it after this?
I've had my lunch and I had something not long ago, and then I'll have something again later.
Do you know what you're having?
I
think hold on. Rich said, John, no doubt, having chicken and rice. He's so eccentric. Is it chicken and rice?
No, it's not chicken. People won't like this. So right. So
probably will.
Yeah. So I went to Aldi and I have like a packet of beef mince, you put in your spag bowl. But I don't fancy spag bowl. And what I've been having recently, and sometimes, I don't know, on Twitter, it'll be like a photo of beef mince and rice mixed together. And it'll be like, you're in that like it's your dog's birthday or whatever. Because it's just like, that's what I've been having. Because it really tastes all right. Yeah. And I've got some pepper, so I'll just throw some peppers in it. So yeah, it probably sounds pretty diabolical to most people, but
All right, let's break this down a little bit.
It's a good, like, hearty, healthy meal, so it's all good.
Are you adding flavour to that in spices and whatnot?
I'll throw some bits in there, but it's not going to be anything crazy. No.
Is that not like a kind of chili kind of vibe? You've got mince and rice with peppers. You put a bit of chili powder in there. That's kind of like a very basic chili.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty dry. But
if you frame that as I'm making chili, we'd go, oh, fair play. If you say I'm having boiled rice and mince that a dog could have on their birthday,
yeah,
that doesn't sound great.
Yeah, because the photo of it, if you want it, would be that. You wouldn't say, oh, nice, mate. So you've made some chili there. It's not that. You can't serve that to another human being and expect them not to say what you're doing. I don't mind it.
Let's move on. Ed says, Ezri Konsa and Pau Torres have elite skill sets in different areas. However, are they a good partnership? Do their skill sets complement each other? And if not, who is more upgradable? And also, my hot take is that it would be easier to find a physically dominant, high-level right centre-back to partner with Pau than it would be to find the perfect partner for Konsa. I completely agree. I think that's bang on.
It sounds quite a basic answer, but the proof's in the pudding. Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa are our best centre-back partnership. And we've seen that over the course of a few seasons now. Mings didn't lose a Premier League game last season. And I know some people, Mings has his detractors in some areas. He obviously had the injury, so can you rely on him all the time? Not necessarily. But, and this is just me talking, because I'm not Unai Emery, who clearly is a massive fan of Pau Torres, and so am I. But is Pau Torres now your kind of backup to Mings rather than Mings backup to Torres? Because the proof is there. We kept clean sheets at the back end of the season with Mings in the team. Torres too, but mainly with Mings. And to go unbeaten in 14 Premier League games as a player, like, that's no mean feat. It's pretty sensational, to be fair. So if the season started tomorrow, or even when the season does start, because I don't think we'll sign a centre-back that I'm more comfortable playing
No, I don't.
than Konsa and Mings. So that's my answer. I could tell you, like, oh yeah, we should go after Diamande of Sporting, left-sided, strong, area dominant, similar to Mings. But firstly, finances park that over there. But secondly, Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa is our best centre-back partnership, and it's been proven. So right now, that's my answer. In the long term, after next season or even halfway through next season, is that the same thing? We'll wait and see. But based on the evidence, if the season started tomorrow, again, when it starts, I think that will be our safest bet to keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Ed kind of pointed out, are they the best partnership? I've definitely felt through part ways of last season that they're all good players individually and they have their strengths, as Ed says, but I don't know whether they do work together, really. Now, I don't know what that looks like, really, because, and again, this is more like trying to look at the whole picture in one go when we don't know anything. If you are changing your goalkeeper and Luca Dean leaves and Matson is starting and he's first choice and maybe Cash isn't, do you rip the centre backs apart as well? Like, is that a position we can afford to go and buy anyway to a high level? It probably will be Konsa, Mings and Torres, but I'm not sure any of those combinations really work. Mings and Konsa works on pitch performance, they're good. Is Mings going to play 50 games? Or is he going to start 35, 40 and Torres is going to be the bit part player? I don't think so. Unai Emery clearly likes Torres and kind of that's his like lieutenant on the pitch or lieutenant, whichever one it is in England. I can never remember. Worked with him before. He's that style of play. He can get his messages across. But Konsa and Torres don't really work together. So I do think that's a bit of a questionable area, but I don't know whether we'll rectify it this summer. In fact, I don't think we will.
Well, Villa are looking at a right-sided defender, as they have been for quite some time now. Obviously, Geertruida, they wanted to sign but couldn't, didn't have the flexibility to do it. And Loic Bade, of course, back in January, £20 million deal. Didn't happen in the end because Bade didn't want to leave Sevilla halfway through the season. I'm not sure if that was him rejecting Villa from the outset. I don't want to go to there. I'd go somewhere else. I think it was more he didn't want to leave Sevilla halfway through the season, but also we know that there was that clash in terms of minutes. Would he get the minutes he needs? Because of course Ezri Konsa is the competition for him there. apparently in reports in Spain say that Bade now is open to leaving Sevilla, which is interesting. Would Villa go back in for him, or would Bade just shut that down because he wants to be the dominant centre back in a squad? I don't know, but again, Villa will have other targets. Enzo Boyomo from Osasuna, I believe. Mosquera from Valencia. I know that he's on a list, or was on a long list, as is the case for every position, as we saw in previous windows. Gallagher, Anana, etc. Villa always start with long lists, then reduce them and go after the main targets. Mosquera was on that, but I think Leipzig were going after him. I'm not too sure where that's at, having gone on holiday last week. I've kind of switched off from that. I don't know at this point, but it wouldn't surprise me if that got done, because I think it was relatively advanced. So yeah, that right side seems to be where they're focusing, and the left side, Mings, Torres, Maatsen, Dean, or another. I think there's question marks over it.
That side definitely feels more set than the right side.
That's my point. Yeah, it's set, but the question is, well, does it work though with the right side? So yeah, I definitely understand the question. It's something that we've been asked previously as well.
Yeah, I want to do a whole episode about Pau Torres maybe next week. Again, one of our little let's just chat about him for a bit with no kind of questions or thoughts or whatever, because again, as you were talking, I can see the chat at the bottom and there's people talking about Pau playing midfield. Pau's not physical enough for the Premier League and all these different things. I want a defender that can defend. I don't care whether he's a good passer and the kind of the narrative around him. I feel like if we start that conversation now, we won't answer any more questions. Are you up for doing a Torres special?
I could talk again from the 20 minutes on Torres, so it's definitely probably worth another video.
Right, and I don't want that to be like, we both like Torres and you're all wrong. I think there's a conversation to be had about him, and I'd rather do that another time.
Yeah, and as I say, I'd play Mings over him, whoever we play on the first game of next season.
Okay. Stuart says, are we going to have to reluctantly bite the bullet and leave Villa Park for a bigger, fancier stadium in order to compete revenue-wise with the likes of the Big Six?
Do you want to sell your soul? I don't.
No, I don't. But what's the trade-off? From a positive perspective, Villa
personally,
winning
I don't.
and whatnot.
I don't care. Don't want to sell my soul. I know it's controversial for some fans because they'll see the neighbours, shall I say, trying to do their thing, and because they're something right. A lot of fans will be thinking that they'll be thinking, "Oh, we can't have the second biggest stadium in the Midlands." I don't care because it's Villa Park and it has too much history. Everything about Aston Villa is in that brickwork. I know Villa Park isn't the only place we've played football matches in our long history, but avoid that at all costs for me. It's the one thing you don't touch.
I agree.
Whoever kind of, how do I say it, ticks the box to say, knock down Villa Park, it's a massive decision that you just can't make, in my opinion. I understand the question, though, revenue, etc., but I would much rather let people playing let other teams play in Super League in 10 years and we be left behind in the English League if it means to play Villa Park and win English trophies. That sounds very, I want to play in European competitions too, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, whatever the kind of runaway clubs will do in the next 10 years, if we're not one of them, I'm okay with that, because that means that they will only be playing in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or wherever it may be. Football will change dramatically, I'm sure, in however long. And I just want Aston Villa to remain the classic club that we are and to be recognised still and forever as that. I don't want to be caught up in anything that doesn't resemble what we helped create. We helped create the Football League, didn't we? So, yeah, kind of different to what the question asked there, but I don't want to be kind of lured into money traps, basically, and knock down Villa Park for the pursuit of something. Well, what is it? I don't even know. So, yeah, never knock down Villa Park, never leave Villa Park would be my say. But I know people will disagree with that. Some people will agree with it. Just my opinion.
No, I'm with you as well. John the Janny says, got your Sambas yet? No, I haven't got my Sambas yet. I thought I was going to like them. I don't think I would buy them, but I thought I was going to like them from the first images. The kind of side profile of the three stripes. I think it says villains, maybe. Is that correct?
Villa or Villains, yeah.
I think it is, yeah. And I thought, yeah, I don't think I'll buy them, but I get it. I know a lot of people would.
I really like the idea. I love the idea.
Yeah, I think my dad probably would buy them. maybe that's a different target audience for a start. When they launched them and the top-down view has the actual Villa crest on the tongue, instantly no. Killed it. Absolutely killed it. And I saw a few people suggest, that's Villa trying to get their brand on. Lots of other clubs have got these and they're exactly the same. Bayern Munich, Juventus, Arsenal, they've all got their club crest on the tongue.
Do they?
Yeah, and it's... I think they're for kids. No. And I mean that in the most respectful way for people in the chat who bought
buys them. Yeah.
Everyone, who am I? What am I wearing? You know what I mean? Who am I to give fashion advice? However, I wouldn't wear the Villa badge on my shoes. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a little bit. I don't know.
I don't know. I think
even the top, like for those that listen, the top kind of design of kind of the clarity bit looks like a bowling shoe.
Like I don't know what it's called. Is it like the lip or something when it goes up?
Yeah. Like that. If that wasn't there and it was white with the claret stripes and villains and it was 70 odd quid, all right, I can kind of see that. Yeah. Over 100 and you're wearing basically club merch with the crest on both feet is a bit like, I don't know.
I mean, it's taste, isn't it? So again, an opinion on fashion, we're not best place for this at all. Speaking for myself, I guess. I always prefer like minimalistic or what's the word? I just don't like to be like when I was on holiday. There was a Leeds fan in front of me. You can tell it's a Leeds fan because he had a Leeds. What are they called? I've completely forgotten. It's gone on my head.
Don't know. I wasn't there.
Towel, beach towel.
Yes.
He had a Leeds beach towel. Sorry, he had a Leeds bucket hat, a Leeds shirt, Leeds shorts, and even had yellow and yes, fine for him. Yeah, yellow and blue pegs as well, which I thought was like well over.
Oh wow! Okay,
but personally, I don't like to kind of flash off. Oh, I'm a Villa fan. I might wear something like a little lion or something that's quite discreet, shall I say? Personally, like flashing claret and blue and that sort of thing. It's just not my bag. So I wish that they'd maybe create another shoe that was more, say, minimalistic, maybe. But again, just my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And there were absolutely people listening to this going, I've bought them and I don't feel like that. That's great. Like to not listen to me and think, should I return these now? The Claret Blue podcast said they're crap. No. You buy them and enjoy them and wear them. And
if anything, it's a reason to buy them.
yeah. It's just not my cup of tea, and that's fine.
Taste,
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Cal Robs. Do you think Malen will get a fair crack of the whip this season? I don't want to go as far as say I think he'll be really important, but kind of on more that scale than he'll be a bit part.
Yeah, again, I'm interested to see what we do on that right side of the pitch because Bailey will no doubt leave, which leaves you got McGinn, Rogers, who I don't like on the right. I don't think many people do apart from Emery. And of course Malen. Yeah, I'd love to see him get a fair crack of the whip. It was interesting to, I think it was Malta that the Netherlands played, and there was, Malen's having a great international break. Yeah, I'd be scared if you didn't.
International break against them.
So yeah, you can read nothing into that. Like, yeah, it's good that he's having confidence. Don't get me wrong, putting the ball in the back of the net, but he did that for Villa for 3 games running against Forest, Southampton, and Brighton, I think, and then didn't play. So yeah, I've said before though, confidence-wise, I haven't actually seen any issues with Malen regarding that, considering he hasn't played much football or started many games at all. But yeah, I think it's one of those players where you can forget that he even is there. So when you do bring him up and talk about him, you think, actually, that's not a wild card, but that's a player that kind of like Tielemans previously and like other players, takes a little bit of time to get going. Maatsen as well. And you realise, all of a sudden, we have that player.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
That should improve as well. So yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
I think he'll be relatively important next year. And if he can have anything like the season that Bailey had, are we saying last season still? Yeah, the one everyone knows I'm on about. Yeah, if he can be that kind of player for us, Villa will hopefully be in a much better position. Let's do this one from Scott, 'cause it's kind of along the same kind of the Sambas thing in my brain from my answer. It says, thoughts on the Villa fandom at the minute. I feel like it's raining so heavy. I feel like there's a small minority of fans who criticise optimistic supporters like myself as responsible for our underachievement. That's an interesting take. I think things are going pretty well, to be honest. Now, I say this is similar to the Sambas thing in the sense that I don't want to kind of like be too much of like, show you how the sausage is made here, but we share our opinions as fans. If you ask us to talk about something, we'll talk about it as me and as you and as Matt. We're not some entity kind of, we've got an audience, so we're projecting onto you and telling you how to feel. Don't buy the Sambas, they're horrible. Like, you do you, right? And I kind of feel the same. Like, I don't want to tell you how to feel about fellow Villa fans. If you think we're too negative or too positive, or there's delusions of grandeur or whatever it is, or the atmosphere is terrible, like, you kind of think how you think and we think how we think. But just because we say something is something or isn't, that isn't us saying this is how you should feel as well. I think there is a bit of a maybe conflict between supporters. And I don't think this is a Villa thing. I think it's everywhere. I think some people will be happy with the progress that Villa have shown over the last 2.5 years under Emery compared to what we had in the previous X amount of years before that. And we should be appreciative of the journey that we've been on. And we're kind of maybe not punching above our weight now, but punching above our weight from where we were 10 years ago. And then I know on the flip side of that, there'll be people who think, well, that's small time mentality. Like, yeah, we've come a long way, but it's been a long time. Us losing out on the final day to United and bottling it against Palace at Wembley, that's the sign of a weak team now. Never mind the journey and where we've come from. Like, we need to be better. Like, we should be going into the league season on August, whatever it is, expecting to win the league or finish fourth or whatever it is. And everyone goes into supporting Villa in however they like. So I definitely think there's some kind of conflict of optimism versus pessimism or whatever it is. But I think that's just like the hierarchy of football. Like, there's different levels to it. Does that make sense, or am I just waffling?
No, I understand where you're going with it. What I would say is I do think next season is huge in terms of what we can become. Because as I said in our live show, if we don't win the Europa League, I'll be disappointed. And I say that right now without knowing who we're signing, who we're losing. I don't really mind what happens there. As I've said previously, I always think we'll be in a good place after whatever window. And therefore, not winning the Europa League would be deemed, I think, as a failure. Because now is the point where you have to win. We've kind of done the groundwork, haven't we? And we can talk about how quickly that's happened. I didn't expect to be in the Champions League this quickly into Unai Emery's tenure, let alone get to the last 8. But we've also proven that we are that good now. So let's back it up. Let's not kind of use that as that was great. And now we can kind of go back into being a team who kind of accepts that that's our ceiling. No, not at all. And Emery won't accept that. Neither will the owners. Neither will Damin or Monchi. So that's why not winning the Europa League would, for me, be seen as a failure. If we don't view that as a failure, that would be small time for me. Yeah. If we're sitting after a semi-final or a final in the Europa League and saying it was a great ride, shut up. Like, we got to the last 8 of the Champions League. Winning mentality from next season is what it will set us apart or not. I do believe that. Yeah. Equally, that's the Europa League. The Premier League, we have to be competing for the Champions League again because we don't have the difficulty of games as we did in the Champions League in the league phase. I was looking at it earlier, actually. Similarly to the Champions League, 5 wins in the Europa League last season was about 4th or 3rd, 5th place. So, no, obviously not guaranteed to get into the top 8, but you've got a great chance of getting in the top 8 if you win 5 of your 8 games. We won 5 of our 8 Champions League matches.
You expect those games to be easier.
You expect, easier, which they are. So you win against both your pot 4 opponents, both of your pot 3 opponents, and then one other. Or all of your home games and one away game. It's doable. We should do it. That's that. Your playoffs, your knockouts, round of 16, quarters, semi-final. Park that's for later on. We'll see where we are. But until that happens, I'd like to think that Villa will be in a strong position in the league because, as I said then, we should be able to rotate. And when we rotate, there should be a good player coming in for that position. I'm talking, if we sign him Asensio instead of Miggin, Rodgers instead of Ramsey, or Malen instead of maybe new right winger, something like that. We should be fine to compete on all fronts again. So that's why I'm sitting here now thinking, I'm excited for it. but equally, it's really important that we do something big next season. Because if we don't, all of a sudden it will be Unai's third full season, fourth season. And where will we be? I'd like to think we'll be in the Champions League again, which would be fantastic for revenue, etc. I'd also like to think we've won a trophy. If we don't do either of those things, that would come as a real blow then, because then you look back and think it was the Champions League 2 seasons ago from that, after next season. And if that would feel like distant memory almost, because football moves so quickly, and what players will we have then? Is the project still alive in terms of... we want Champions League as many times as we can. We don't bank on it because that would be irresponsible financially, etc. But you need to be in it basically every other season. And let's say in the next 5 years, you want to be in it at least 3 times. Newcastle have done it 2 out of 3 years now. We have to do it 2 out of 3 years again to show progression. So, yeah, that's why next season is exciting, but also really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kevin asks, Man City buying Nipan only to loan him out, like stopping Villa buying him, also conveniently dodgy, but legal.
2 different posts.
Yeah. I think this is, again, a really interesting one. Clearly, Villa, from what I've read, have done a lot of groundwork in trying to get the player in. Sometimes it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for you. They change their minds. I think this is less... And to be fair, we'll answer the Man City thing in a sec. Maybe Nipan just doesn't fancy Europa League. Is it Nipan? I think it is, isn't it? Maybe not getting into the Champions League changes his decision. Maybe another club comes in with more wages and that changes his decision. It's not, I don't like Villa, and I was just kind of towing them along and seeing what happened. Things change in football. This is why nothing is ever guaranteed. That I wasn't kind of doing Nipan podcasts and watching highlights reels too much and reading too much about him, because I kind of do that if we sign them, is my approach. I don't really care for much of transfer links, to be honest. The Man City thing, it's fine. They have gone for the player. If they think he's not quite ready for competing for a Premier League title and a Champions League trophy, if they can loan him out to, I don't know, I've not seen any of the links, a Serie A side or whatever.
Probably Girona.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay. Go and have their season more football, and then we bring you back and reassess it. We'll either keep you because you're good, or we'll sell you for PSR. That's the world we all live in, so I don't really care about Man City buying it. I don't think it's that they're thinking, well, Villa are after them, so we're going to get him instead because we can. It's not that at all. It might feel like it. But
might be more Arsenal, because they would view Arsenal more as a rival, to be honest.
Yeah. I just suggested that he just didn't want to come to us in the end.
Well, yeah, the information that I had was mid-April, I believe, when Villa essentially had encouragement from Nipan to proceed with Rosenborg to have some talks about a deal. Obviously, things went a little bit quiet after then. I don't know exactly why we haven't managed to get a deal over the line, but I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was before my holiday. I did check in on the situation, and what kind of within the club they were saying that a deal was never advanced anyway. So I don't know whether it was a price point or Nipan gave encouragement, then quickly backed out. I have no idea, but it's a pretty blurred timeline, granted. So apologies for that, but it was Nipan giving Villa encouragement. So I presume at that point Villa were in pole position to sign him at that stage. And then whatever happened in the last month and a half or so, nearly 2 months now, something went wrong essentially. But I'm sure this would not be kind of Villa's fault, as it were. Nipan's clearly chosen Man City. If Nipan wanted to join Villa, he'd have joined Villa because. And again, I get there's the kind of PSR spin of maybe we couldn't even afford it £12 million because we need to do this before June 30. Nipan would have just waited. This is a player who's only 18. He doesn't need to jump into a move that he doesn't want to take. I find it interesting, though, because clearly he rejected Arsenal, there was another club. It slipped my mind now, annoyingly. And he was happy to join Villa, and I could absolutely see why. Maybe Villa thought, well, actually, we have, and I don't know this, but they have Brenner, Barkley, Onana, Kamara, Tielemans, Miggy, that midfield is probably the most stacked area of the squad at the moment. That can change, obviously, with players leaving. Maybe Nipan thought that, well, I'm not going to start there or whatever it may be, which is what I want to be doing if we're only in the Europa League. Champions League and Man City is a different kettle of fish. They are competing for Premier League titles, or should be, season after season. I think he's probably happy to go out on loan once, see where he goes. From there, who knows? Maybe in 4 years he returns. He would come to Villa because he realises that's the destination he should have went to in the first place. And City doesn't quite work out. How many players have we seen leave City? I mean, we've had two of them, Louise and Rogerson. So who knows what'll happen? But I don't coin this as like a blow for Villa. I always think if you're going to sign a promising player, it's frustrating that you don't get them, but it doesn't impact the here and now. And that is what I think should concern Villa most, because they have to look long term in terms of their targets because of age profile, PSR, but everything is also quite short term in terms of we need to win now because we have Emery now.
I think in terms of transfers, it's maybe for the big ones, there's players that feel achievable but cost a lot. So that's say Mbeumo going to Spurs or Man United or wherever for 60. You think as a player we should be able to attract him to Aston Villa, but we probably can't PSR-wise afford to spend that much currently. So that's kind of, I can manage and deal with that. Mm-hmm. I always think, and maybe I'm naive for this, for players, say Mbeumo was 15 million and there wasn't interest elsewhere and Villa could definitely go and get him. If he didn't sign for Villa, that's either because Mbeumo doesn't want to come or Villa don't want him. Yeah. So to be like, well, we've really missed out on one there. If Villa didn't want him and he didn't want to come, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. That's how I've always approached transfers. If it doesn't happen, it's either we couldn't afford them because of PSR, which is a bit of a pain because our owners clearly have money. But it's just that the manager didn't want them, or the player didn't want to come to us. If the player doesn't want to come to us, then what can you do?
Yeah, and there's been several occasions where Villa haven't got the first target under Emery, and I'm not going to go through it again, but as I said earlier, look at the route that we've taken in the last 2.5 years. It's been pretty spectacular. I always say that if we went one more and won an FA Cup, won a Champions League, finished in the Champions League again, you're talking like perfect situation, perfect scenario. And these 2 years have been the best that you could have hoped for. Instead, it's the level below. We missed out on a few different things. And the Palace FA Cup one, I really can't forgive. I don't think many fans will. But the rest is pretty much like as good as it really could have got in terms of Champions League qualification, going so well and deep in the competition, and it not being at the detriment of our league performance. And we should have got the Champions League again, which would have been pretty much unheard of, a team doing back-to-back who don't have the revenues of the kind of big commercial six, as it were. So yeah, like what we've done has been pretty extraordinary. However, as I say, next season's huge now, and need to push on again.
K22M says, can Dan think of an ideal right winger to bring in to rotate with Malen, one who can hug the touchline? Now, that is a reference to a comment I said a couple of weeks ago. What did I say? Touch the hug line, was it?
Yeah. I don't think I stopped you because I think you were like mid-flow and I thought, I'll let it be.
So I always wonder with things like that, should you have stopped me and pulled me up on it, or do you just let it go? Because I remember doing this once. It was in the COVID era where we would film on a phone call, and I would film myself and Matt would film himself and I would sync it together. It wasn't done like this.
All right.
Mad, 5 years ago. Very different vibe. And there was a time where, and again, I'm going to put this down to, it was warm. I'd not left the house for 3 months or whatever.
Where's this going?
I was talking about Danny Drinkwater. Would you believe? Oh, have a sip of water, John. And I called him. You're just talking quickly and you can just say something.
Yeah, I do it a lot.
You've got no idea what you've said. I called him Danny Jewelry Quarter. Which is mental, right? Why would I even be thinking that?
Right? Send me that later.
And Matt said at the time, did you just say Danny Jewelry Quarter then? And I was like, no, obviously not. Why would I say that? Yeah. If I did, I'll put the clip in. And then I watched it back and I said, blah, 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 Danny Jewelry Quarter, blah, blah, blah. Like, what are you thinking? So I think it is easy sometimes to just slip something out. And I think you probably should have pulled me up on a winger that could hutch the tug line, or whatever I said. I can't remember. Hug the touch line, touch the hug line. I don't know.
Yeah.
Serious point. Do you know any right wingers who might be good?
The question was for you, mate.
I haven't. I don't know. Mbeumo?
No, the one that I've mentioned before would be Bakayoko of PSV. But as I've also said, don't think his form has been as good as what it was a couple of years ago.
What about
that kind of profile?
What about Neil Shout? I've forgotten his name. The event. Neil came on the podcast on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Conceição's a player that I've watched for a few years because I don't know, long-term listeners maybe are aware that my partner's a Porto fan, so watch them pretty regularly. Conceição's it's a strange one because he epitomises a winger. 1 week he's electric, and you're like, "Am I watching Messi?" The next week, he vanishes, and it was the case in Portugal played the other day. I don't know if anyone saw the game, but you wouldn't have seen Conceição because he didn't really show up. so that's why probably Juventus haven't taken up the option to buy. I don't believe. And why what we saw at Villa Park, you'd have thought he'd be playing for any team in Europe, really. So very, very talented player, also quite young, but someone who can fulfill his potential if he stays consistent. Unai Emery would probably have the best chance of getting that out of him. The only other thing I would say is, well, for the Premier League, he's very slight, quite small. A lot of players can obviously thrive being kind of low centre of gravity, etc. But I would have my reservations. If we signed him, of course, I'd look towards the kind of positives of it. And if we signed him, there'd be the reasons why, as we all know, as we've seen at Villa Park, etc. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we overlooked him for another player. But equally, if we went for him, absolutely, I get it. And he's definitely a player that excites, but I'd have my reservations in other areas too. His height, for example, physical profile, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the Villa Park things again. For the comments, I went back to the start and I've gone down. So when Frank here was talking about selling your soul to move stadium, that was at the time we were talking about before. Frank says it's not selling your soul to move stadium. It means it's a new beginning. It happens and it is growth. Now, we're doing this off the top of our head. It's live. I was trying to think, because I read that as you were finishing then, of other clubs who have moved stadium and whether it was growth or progress or not. I think the easiest comparison is West Ham and will be Everton. I think Arsenal to Emirates, totally different, almost pointless, I think, because it's that...
Yeah, they're established.
6 clubs or whatever, it's different. Yeah. Tottenham, exactly the same. Man City, different as well, I think.
Have Tottenham taken the leap that everyone expected them to? I mean, Tottenham's difficult, to be fair, because Tottenham actually proves the point that, sorry, I forgot the name there, the chat makes. And this is why, Daniel Levy always gets stick from Tottenham fans, and I'll always be the first to, sticking for Daniel Levy is difficult, but I'll be always the first to say, but you're cemented, you're set, you've got huge revenues. If you want to spend money, you can do that. Their wage bill is really low compared to it. So that's the kind of evidence to do it. However, we're not in London. Of course, Birmingham, you like to think, gets out of debt and all that, and we become the thriving city that we all love. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's different for us to Spurs. Everton, I think, is probably the best example of whatever happens there would be, if Everton all of a sudden use this new stadium and it's a fortress and it's fantastic, blah, 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 blah. Again, though, there's reasons why they had to leave Goodison, and I know that they're using it for the women's team, I think, now. But I remember I went there actually for the first time when I started this job a couple of years ago. And I said straight away that it really underwhelmed me, actually, Goodison. I love that it's got character, and I love that it's got something about it. I'd much rather go to Goodison Park every week than Tottenham and the London Stadium, of course. But I still felt it had nothing on Villa Park, and I'm not even just saying that as a Villa fan. I'm really not. The tiers of the stands were small. I don't know. It just wasn't. I get it. It's Goodison Park, but for me, it just wasn't. I don't know.
See, I was about to put in then and say, like, let's say Everton goes well and they suddenly become a European chasing side again. Is that down to the stadium? Like, obviously, it's an unknown because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, revenues would help, maybe.
Yeah, possibly, I suppose. But again, you could get a world-class manager in who gets the best out of your players, and you don't need to spend as much, like Villa going 17th to 7th. No, obviously we spent money, but you know what I mean? I think other clubs like a Brighton, having the Amex, or Brentford move into theirs, like, again, that's a different level. Like Brighton now, it's all of a sudden going to become a massive club because they've built a new stadium. And again, I think because of what came before it isn't as historic and special as Villa Park, it's a lesser point anyway. That's why I feel like West Ham is probably the perfect example how not to do it. Upton Park was that. London Stadium is terrible. West Ham have probably gone backwards since leaving Upton Park, despite winning the Conference League. They've not been good for years now. Again, they've got the London thing that's more comparable with Spurs, but I don't know whether I would agree with this about the selling your soul thing. But I don't like it, and it's not. So I don't think it's some kind of silver bullet that Villa will be constantly in the top 4 because we've got, I don't know, Kendrick Lamar performing there at the new stadium.
Well, again, another question would be, where do you go? Because it's like saying, "Oh, fire the manager." Right, who'd you bring in? I don't know. Well, great solution. Sorry, that sounds really. That's not firing at the person who asked the question. I'm not being rude. Literally, where do Aston Villa go? We can't go to.
Well, yeah,
can't go to the NEC. It's Aston Villa. Like you're displaced. For me, it has to be where you, Witten, Aston, that area, and I just don't want to be leaving Villa Park. And it's not as if we've got a 30,000 capacity stadium. I get that, other stadiums will be bigger than ours, but when we get to 50k, there was, of course, a plan in place to get to 60k under Purslow. That didn't happen, the whole thing was scrapped into heck, wasn't it? So clearly there's scope to do that.
Yeah.
I just, personally, for me, it would be selling our soul.
Okay. King 81 says, did Chelsea and City take forever to achieve trophy success when they were bought by billionaires? We have been owned by 4 billionaires now and not achieved any trophies.
Yeah, but they didn't have the rules that we're dealing with now, do they?
Yeah.
The PSR limit with inflation just hasn't kept up. We've been hamstrung completely. So I get that, but also we've come from the Championship too, and it's the same set of rules, but also completely different because we can't buy players for the money that we'd like. We can't flex our muscle.
Yeah.
We have no debt, which is incredible, and we have no kind of reward for that.
Right, thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the Claret Blue podcast. A little bit of an abrupt ending there because we did record some more bits, but the processing system failed on our software site, which is a real pain in the backside, but it is what it is. We'll be back again in a couple of days with something else, so keep an eye on social media, the podcast feed, the YouTube channel, and if you're subscribed or following on any of those platforms, you'll be first to know when the next episode drops. Cheers for watching this one or listening, and we'll see you then.